Barack Obama is one of our most buttoned-up presidents, but his raw feelings were on display this week when he spoke of the young black men whose path he admits could easily have been his own. Outraged by the fact that young black men are more likely than other Americans to drop out of school, be sent to prison, or end up murdered. He launched a new initiative called My Brother's Keeper. ABC's Pierre Thomas was there.
22,000. That's the number of African-American men murdered in the U.S. during the first 4 years of the Obama presidency. 22,000. President Obama met these young men on a trip last year to his hometown, Chicago. This week, they brought stories of their stark reality to Washington.
Tell me what each one of you want to be, and then I want you to tell me what the greatest obstacles are.
I want to be an architect and design buildings. And the obstacle is like the streets, like the neighborhoods I go through.
Shooting, fighting.
Yes.
I want to be a criminal profiler for the FBI. The violence, because that make me not even want to go to school.
I want to be a prosecutor. It's saddening that you can't even walk down the street. It's like you gotta pick and choose the right time to leave the house.
Just the other day, somebody tried to rob my brother with a gun at a gas station.
It's like very stressful. That's the most overwhelming thing ever.
The young men joined Obama to launch his My Brother's Keeper initiative, aimed at tying together the nation's best mentoring programs and providing educational and economic opportunities to at-risk youth. For the president, this is clearly personal.
When I was their age, I was a lot like them. I didn't have a dad in the house. And I was angry about it. I made bad choices. I got high without always thinking about the harm that it could do. I didn't always take school as seriously as I should have. I made excuses. I could see myself in these young men. When I made a mistake, the consequences were not as severe. I had people who encouraged me. They never gave up on me. And so I didn't give up on myself.
The president is hoping that $350 million in private donations and commitments from leaders from all walks of American life will help parents and young men break the cycle of violence and poverty.
These problems have been long-standing, around a long time. What is it going to take to truly make a difference?
Well, I think the most powerful man in the world saying that we have a problem, that's President Obama. And then now getting people involved, getting corporate America involved.
Some of the critics have been calling for this earlier. Is this something the president wanted to do? Should he have acted earlier?
When the president took office, just remember what was going on. Our banks were on the verge of collapse. People were losing their homes. The economy was in a free fall. We had 2 wars going on. And now that the economy is growing, now is the point where we have to make sure that every child has an opportunity.
Colin Powell said the crisis should not be a partisan issue, but he acknowledged that the first African-American president has to walk a tightrope, lest he be perceived as playing favorites.
I think he threaded the needle very well. He made it clear that he was concerned, as he has to be as the President of the United States, with all Americans. But when you have a particular unique problem that has historic roots to it, and those historic roots continue to contaminate the present, in order to prepare for the future, you can't hide from this problem.
Obama called the plight of so many young people an outrage. 22,000 dead. For This Week, I'm Pierre Thomas, ABC News, Washington.
Thanks to Pierre Thomas for that. More now from our experts. Van Jones is back, along with Dr. Gail Christopher from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, Heather McDonald from the Manhattan Institute. And Dr. Christopher, let me begin with you. The Kellogg Foundation, you attended this week at the White House. Kellogg Foundation very actively involved, but put some meat on the bones of what Magic Johnson was saying. What specific difference will it make to have the president calling this meeting, launching this initiative?
The Kellogg Foundation is one of many foundations that have stepped up. Adding the voice of the President of the United States is unprecedented and extremely important, not only to mobilizing other resources, but also to the young men. We all want what's best for our children. And imagine the experience of every day knowing that people have permission to use deadly force against you, even if you aren't armed, to be exposed to schools that are under-resourced, to live in fear. And so we're very excited that the president has said the norm is not acceptable anymore. I think that's the real power here.
And Dr. McDonald, you welcome some of the president's words, particularly his words about fathers, the responsibilities of fathers, but you say more money isn't necessarily the answer.
Well, I think there was a revolutionary initiative waiting to get out of this speech, George, that never quite made it. The two most important moments were President Obama's moving declaration of the overwhelming sense of responsibility he would have for his son, if he had one, to keep him out of trouble and give him the sense of compassion and respect for others that he would need to succeed. And the other important point was President Obama's observation that nothing keeps a young man out of trouble like a father who takes an active role in his life. And that should have been the theme. How do we rebuild the family and make sure that more children are raised by their fathers? Because the data is clear. Children who grow up in fatherless homes are 5 times as likely to commit crime or be poor, 9 times as likely to drop out, and 20 times as likely to end up in prison. How do I know this? President Obama said so in 2008 when he was running for the presidency. There's no more important gap than the fatherlessness gap, and it affects all Americans, but it's especially acute for young men of color, and that's what we should be worried about.
Well, that's one of the things we should be worried about for sure. As a dad and as somebody who's, my father was in the home, it made a tremendous difference for me. I think, though, it's important that we hold these young people to high standards, and we hold the adults to even higher standards. It's very hard to climb a ladder out of poverty that doesn't have any rungs on it, and we've got to begin to put those rungs of opportunity back for these kids. And listen, everybody else who got in trouble in America, Wall Street got in trouble, we were there for Wall Street. The auto industry got in trouble, we were there for the auto industry. You got a whole generation of young kids who are clearly in trouble. I'm so proud the president finally stepped forward.
How will we know if this is working?
Well, like all social interventions, we have ways, we have metrics we can follow, whether the jobs have increased, whether the graduation rates have increased. We certainly can track the number of young people who actually have mentors, have people in their lives to guide them. I mean, you can count these.
Can I say one more thing? I do think, I agree with what you're saying about fatherhood, but sometimes my fear is that people will say, well, it's just up to the dads. Dad's got to do more. But when you have this many kids in trouble, we all have to do more, and it shouldn't be either or. We got to be able to do both.
There's not a chance that we're going to say that. I mean, nobody's been saying that. That's the problem. We have been doing programs, as we should, with compassion and concern for 3 decades. They haven't made much difference because nobody's willing to talk about fathers and say they are not an optional appendage to children. There's wonderful single mothers there who are trying to do the best by their kids, but kids need their fathers. And until we can rebuild the family,
it's a false argument.
Let's talk about it. Obama could have started a discussion about fathers. It is the issue. There's nothing more important.
It's one of many. It's one of many issues.
73% of all black children are born to single mothers, compared to 29% of white kids.
These statistics you're talking about,
these
statistics you're talking about are heartbreaking for every African American. You think that you need anybody to tell us how terrible this is? We work on it every day, but we also need corporate America to step up. We need the president to speak out. We need more things than just dads doing better.
Well, let's have corporate America talk about fathers.
Last word.
Julius Wilson framed this decades ago. When work disappears, marriage declines. And as long as we have communities where there are no job opportunities, where the education systems are failing, you will not have an increase in marriage rates.
Obama
you can't
has
take
said,
the fatherhood discussion and isolate it from the reality of the economic challenge.
Obama has said there's too many fathers who are acting like boys, not men, and nothing prevents you from marrying the mother of your children. That is within your own personal choice. And we have to say that fathers are essential to their kids.
Amen. I agree with you.
I agree.
We're going to have to revisit this debate. Thank you all very much.